morning. It is Thursday, February 5th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, the brutal public killing of a Jordanian pilot sparks outrage across the world as King Abdullah considers an expanded role in the anti-Islamic State coalition. A new twist emerges in the case of the mysterious death of Argentinian prosecutor Alberto Nisman. And later on the show, we get down and take a closer look at the medicinal properties of the world's favorite recreational drug. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and we begin with news from the neighboring Jordan. The release of a new video by the Islamic State terror group was received with outrage and condemnation across the country as the entire world on Wednesday, as people witnessed the horrific images showing the group burning a Jordanian pilot to death. Now, some political and religious leaders even called for blood over the killing of 26-year-old Lieutenant Muaz Kasasbeh, and Jordan promptly executed two Iraqi jihadis who were on death row, a move that garnered high praise from Israel's foreign minister, Avigdor Lieberman. Now, Jordan King Abdullah cut short a visit to Washington and vowed to take the battle of ISIS and to a stronger level. A government spokesman said Jordan's response will be earth-shattering and is yet to be seen. We are joined in studio, and very happy by that, by Times of Israel senior Middle East analyst Avi Sischarov. Avi, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ann.
And of course, before we break it down, let's take a look at the following report to recap the latest events in Jordan and then break it down.
The latest execution video released by the Islamic State terrorist group has sent shockwaves through the Arab world, and particularly the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. The burning alive of Jordanian Air Force pilot Muaz al-Kasasbeh is seen as a personal attack against the Jordanian monarchy. The Kasasbeh tribe is close to the royal family and forms part of the hardcore of support for King Abdullah, who cut short a visit to the U.S. following the murder.
We meet with great sadness, despair, and anger following the martyring of the heroic pilot, Muaz al-Kasasbeh. May God bless him at the hands of the cowardly terrorist organization Daesh, which behaved in an extremely wrong and criminal way that has nothing to do with our noble religion.
The fury of the Jordanian street was unleashed Tuesday evening after the video was released.
The country has to take its revenge, and I call for no survivors from the Islamic State. I call for revenge by executing prisoners, and I call to erase the Daesh organization.
The Jordanian military promised a swift response.
The armed forces will avenge the death of the hero to confirm that the blood of the martyred pilot wasn't shed in vain, and the revenge for the martyr Muaz will be as great a calamity as that which hit Jordan.
Daybreak brought new developments, including the execution of a female terrorist whose release was previously demanded by IS.
At dawn this morning, the criminal Sajid al-Rishawi and the criminal Ziad Karboli were executed after being convicted of terrorist acts. The pair belong to terrorist organizations.
The Jordanians have said that other terrorists in custody will soon meet a similar fate. The European Union released a statement expressing solidarity with Jordan, but also condemning the executions of terrorists. Interestingly, included in the Islamic State video is a list of 11 other Jordanian Air Force pilots, along with the locations of their private homes. It is unclear how IS managed to obtain the information, but some have speculated it may have emerged from the interrogation of Kasasbeh. The fate of the Jordanian pilot, however, has had a number of effects. In the wake of the execution, it has emerged that the UAE, one of 4 Arab states in the anti-IS coalition, had suspended its airstrikes against the jihadist group following its capture in December, citing worries over a lack of contingency plans for the rescue of downed air crews. Cause for concern, perhaps, among those dedicated to the defeat of the terrorist group, which threatens the region.
We go live first to the border crossing between Jordan and Israel, where I-24 News correspondent Shai Ben Ari is on his way to Amman. Shai, good morning to you. Over the course of the last 24 hours, Jordan has not just executed prisoners in retaliation, but also airstrikes. Anything else on the plate in terms of retaliation against ISIS?
Right. Well, we have to see exactly what will be the steps and measures that the Jordanian regime is now planning against Daesh. Of course, there's been a general statement that that there will be a certain intensification, let's call it, of Jordan's own efforts within the anti-IS coalition. This is not to be taken for granted, of course, because we know that the Arab world is taking this whole issue very seriously. And, for example, as we just heard, the UAE apparently decided to call off its own participation in airstrikes already back in December, once the Jordanian air pilot was downed over Syrian territory, and it remains to be seen exactly how other Arab states will be reacting to this. But the Jordanians have been very vocal following the emergence of this execution, that they will be intensifying their own efforts. And indeed, this calls into question the whole role of Daesh, the Islamic State, and other Arab states in this crisis. It has emerged that really Jordan is seen as something of a crusader state by the Islamic State and something of a battleground. There are many analysts who see a certain effort to try and bait Jordan into indeed intensifying its efforts and into really opening the battlefield and even intensifying the whole battle, let's say, to a much higher level. Perhaps this being the actual desire of the Islamic State, it remains to be seen exactly how this situation will develop.
How this will play out, but obviously, as you're, in Jordan, and I'm assuming that pressure on the king is not going to be let off by his own people when it comes to the images that we saw. But Shai Ben-Ari, you will be reporting for I-24 News from Jordan throughout the day with developments as the story continues. Thank you for being with us. Avi Siskarov with me in studio, and we are also joined via Skype from London by Charlie Winter, a researcher at the Quilliam Institute, an expert on ISIS propaganda. Both of you with me. I want to start this discussion actually by talking about the video itself. And Charlie, if you're listening to us, we just had a discussion off camera about the fact that, all of the videos of ISIS are very well produced. The problem is that this one seems to basically have, Hollywood qualities to it. 16 cameras, it looks like a crane was used. Is this a different modus operandi when it comes to ISIS's videos coming out there? Because the pilot was Jordanian, can something else be gleaned from this horrific production than from other ISIS so-called quote-unquote productions?
Well, I think the high production value and the skill with which it was produced, that shouldn't surprise us. We have seen so many of their videos in the past which have used very, very difficult techniques and a lot of CGI, that kind of thing.
I'm talking about actually the form of execution also.
The form of execution. That is certainly something new. To me it seems like Islamic State is simply trying to upscale the level of brutality with which it brings to the world. And the burning someone alive in a cage, of course it's rich in symbolism. The idea of kind of deconstructing an airstrike, if you like, setting fire to someone and then piling rubble on them. That's the symbolism. But I think more than that, it's just trying to brutalize the world. It knows that everyone who is focusing on Islamic State right now, people around the world, particularly in Arab countries, regional countries, will watch the video or see stills from it, and they will be scared.
And then, Charlie, stay with us. Avi Siskarov, senior Middle East analyst at Times of Israel. I was looking at that video, and I want to start with the video. The first thing that crossed my mind was, is this because this is not a foreign member of a Westerner rather than a Jordanian? I'm theorizing here. But, you look at it, and it seems as if there's a point that is sent directly to Jordan in many ways. Is that the case, do you think? We on theory levels.
I don't think that was the case. I think that what they try to do is to get the best or the biggest achievement on the media level, meaning, just like it was mentioned before, to achieve some kind of a media achievement that the whole world will see ISIS and will say, oh, how scary they are, how big and strong they are. That was their aim. And I must say that when I saw the movie, when I saw the pictures for the first time, what I had in mind, they're losing. ISIS is losing. You cannot interpret this in any other way. They are focusing so much on the media right now, on YouTube, on movies like that, because they know that they are losing on the battlefield. And this is more or less the equation here, meaning when they lose back at home, so-called home, in the Middle East, in Syria and Iraq, what they're trying to do is to reach some kind of successes on the media level and in Europe also. And
Charlie Winter of the Quilliam Institute still with us. It seemed that it had the effect on the West, or it had the effect on the world that ISIS wanted in many ways, didn't it?
Yeah, I kind of disagree with the Islamic State in decline model, and I also disagree that this is a desperate move by Islamic State. Sure, they are being pushed back in areas in Iraq, but as much as they're pushed back in Iraq, they gain territory in Syria. I mean, we could talk about this for a long time, but on the idea of the video itself, the media strategy behind it, it's absolutely right. This video was made to make a splash, and that was the primary objective of the propagandists. I've seen a lot of people saying that it's backfired, that it's alienated lots of people in the region. I don't think it's backfired. I think it would be probably naive of us to think that this is not what the Islamic State propagandists wanted. I mean, they knew that this would be a very, very controversial thing to do. To burn someone alive is, even within Islam, within its version of Islam, within jihadism, it's a very controversial thing to do. I've been looking this morning at the reaction from Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and people are very angry. There was no doubt in their mind that this was going to enrage people. But outrage, international outrage and condemnation is exactly what Islamic State wants. It wants to provoke. It wants to ensure a sense of ubiquity and present a menace to the entire world. This is exactly what it's trying to do.
Well, no, Sally, as you mentioned, many will argue that that was achieved. Avi, I'm wondering out loud with you, though. It seems to be, there are reports this morning that are saying that ISIS is wagging its finger at Jordan, trying to drag it into the battle even more so. Why? Why does it want Jordan so bad, so much in the battle?
I'm not that sure that they want it in the battle. Then again, I think that they look all around and they want to get some kind of attention from the whole world, from the Arab world, from Jordan, from everyone. They want to be focused on ISIS. I think that what they did might drag Jordan into the battle, but they did many things that you wonder, like, how come you did it? Because it's going to damage you, it's going to hurt you, and they don't care about that. But bottom line is that King Abdullah right now is in the corner, meaning his own public demands him, go and do something. Don't stop with one bombing in Syria or in Iraq. Don't go for 2 or 3 or 20 or 30. Do something bigger, meaning a ground operation, maybe sending some troops into Syria. And of course, this is something that King Abdullah doesn't want to do. Right. Now, about ISIS, I have to add here something. Look, yes, they are losing in Iraq. Yes, they are gaining some territories in Syria, but at the same time, they are losing territory in Syria. This is not the same organization that we had met in the last summer when they achieved this huge ground operation around Mosul, around Raqqa. Now they lost to Kobane. And who did they lose in Kobane? For what? For some Kurdish militias? Whenever ISIS is meeting an army, a real army, they are being stopped. They are withdrawing, meaning they are not that strong as everyone tends to believe. And I think that with time, it's going to take a few months. We're going to see more of that. We're going to see them getting into more to the corner, and they will try to do all kinds of attacks in Europe and in other places in order to show that they are still alive.
But I mean, not just the attacks, but if you mentioned places like Mosul, Fallujah in Iraq, for example, those are places that, unlike Kobane, though, that it seems like ISIS is already entrenched. That they're entrenched.
Raqqa, Mosul, and some other cities. The problem is that they're facing right now is that it's not enough about conquering or taking over some cities. They need to make sure that the life continues on. Now, over there, they face another problem with the economic issues, meaning all the income sources are lowering down. It's decreased, especially about the selling of the oil to Turkey, for example, because of the West pushing the Turks to stop the buying of the oil from ISIS. So even about that, they are facing real problems with daily life issues. They are not people that had some kind of experience with managing daily life of municipality, of a city, a big city like Mosul.
In spite of calling themselves a state. Yeah, I mean...
This is not a state.
This is not a state. No, that we know that the attempt itself. Charlie Winter, I want to thank you for being with us this morning. We are also joined on the phone by Oded Iran, who is formerly ambassador of Israel, by former Israeli ambassador to the Hashemite Kingdom, Oded Iran. Oded, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I want to talk a little bit with you and Avi Sischaov about King Abdullah. I personally think this might be a watershed moment for the king. For him, everybody around the region, if you're looking at social media, Avi, correct me if I'm wrong, is awaiting a strong Hashemite reaction because of internal pressure right now to react. What can King Abdullah do other than the immediate thing that he did, which was flexing a muscle and executing the prisoners overnight that ISIS wanted back? But can he do anything more?
He can do several things to counter the threat that ISIS or IS poses to the Jordanian state and the Jordanian society. One thing is to strengthen the economy of the centers, the populated centers of the south, where there's a lot of poverty, unemployment, which is used by all sorts of opposition groups, including ISIS. He can also tighten the control of the borders, both with Iraq and Syria. And he can obviously be helped by in doing the economic stuff by donors, either from the United States or Gulf states, oil-producing countries. So there's a lot that can be done. He can get intelligence to the extent that other participants in this struggle have, either the United States or even Israel to that extent. And this could help a lot, as I said, in countering the possible threat of ISIS to Jordan.
But I mean, in the immediate future, and actually this is to you, Avi Yisrael, I think, strengthening the South and helping the economic situation of areas where ISIS is prone to gain support because people are under dire straits. In the immediate future, aren't the Jordanians going to want to see something more? I mean, this goes to the core. If you're looking at the demonstrations in Jordan over the course of the last 48 hours, and isn't there a call for him to do something now?
Of course, and we see the big tribes, the Bedouin tribes, that are behind these demonstrations, or the same family of the pilot that wants Jordan to do something. Yes, he is being requested right now by his own supporters, by the Bedouins, to do an act, to go and act. It's not enough about sitting in a TV studio and declaring that you will intensify the attacks against the ISIS. They want him to do something bigger than that. Now, I'm not that sure that it's going to be that smart for Jordan to go to a kind of a military adventure in Syria, in Iraq, wherever he's planning to do something. Yes, he can do many things in Jordan, but it's not enough for them. So sometimes not listening to the mob is the right thing to do for your own state. Maybe that's a lesson also for our Prime Minister.
No. In many ways. Now, there obviously, the horror of ISIS didn't stop there. There were experts from a UN watchdog, the Islamic State militants, are torturing and killing children, including those with mental health problems. That's a report that came out this morning. We're looking at this video where, you discuss their advances and you think that they're losing, but at the end of the day, it's not that I completely agree with Charlie Winter. At the end of the day, they're entrenched. That's what I was trying to say. And there seems to be no understanding from the international community. I mean, look at Syria, and that's one thing I'm heading at. Syria is like Stalingrad. I mean, it's a Holocaust.
Syria is a lost case in so many different ways. The international community.
Lost case, so then people give
it's
up.
Not
That's
Syria
it. It's
anymore.
done.
This is done. It's not a state anymore. Forget about Syria. You can call it many different names. This is not Syria.
That I agree with. But then, that said, because it's up in mayhem, the stepping in of the international community at a certain point. I mean, if Jordan tries to do something, King Abdullah doesn't have the army. He does have the army, but it takes him on a very weird and very strange and dangerous adventure. But aren't we at the point where ISIS is wagging its finger and the international community has to intervene?
The international community had intervened already.
More so than airstrikes.
Maybe more than you would imagine. I think that if you count the numbers of aerial operations every day in Iraq and Syria, that's a lot. The international community does a lot. This coalition that we had heard, except for the United Emirates that just ran away from this coalition in a very surprisingly move. But other than that, yes, what happens in Iraq today, they are losing. Then again, the Kurdish militias are coming from the north towards Mosul. The Shiite militias are coming from the south towards Mosul. So yes, they are entrenched in Mosul, but they are losing everywhere around them. Now in Syria, then again, we have to mention Kobane. Kobane was a symbol for ISIS, the way that they managed to wipe out everyone, even to wipe out the Kurds in Kobane, and suddenly, slowly, the Kurds pushed forward, and they lost their way in Kobane. They ran away from this city. Now the big question is, okay, it's going to take a few months, but I think that at the end of the day, the international community will be managing to wipe them out of Iraq, to wipe ISIS. About Syria, this is a different case. I don't feel that there's much energy, no will over there by the West to invest a lot in order to completely wipe out ISIS.
And speaking of what repercussions, what meaning would that have for if the international community does it for the Bashar al-Assad regime or whatever is left of it or whatever he controls? Sadly, we have to move on because we could talk about this forever. But Avi Yisrael, thank you very much for being with me this morning. At least 31 people were killed Wednesday when a passenger plane operated by TransAsia Airways broke its wing on a highway overpass soon after takeoff and plunged into a river in Taiwan. Rescue officials said 16 survivors had been pulled out of the wreckage after the plane crashed with 58 people on board. Officials said there was little hope in finding additional survivors among the 20 people still unaccounted for, despite a massive effort by soldiers and volunteers. Now, so far, there's been no official comment on the cause of the crash, but the plane's black box was retrieved, and it was the second fatal crash involving a TransAsia Airways plane within a few months. A flight operated by the domestic airline crashed in July during a storm, killing 48 people. We are going to break this down after the following report that tries to take a look at what exactly happened. Bye.
It looked like a scene from a disaster movie. More than 25 people were killed when a TransAsia Airlines plane crashed in the Taiwanese capital of Taipei. The plane with 58 people on board flipped into a river soon after takeoff. Rescue efforts began almost immediately after the crash, which as many as 16 people appeared to survive. Officials from TransAsia Airlines apologized for the disaster, but were unable to provide answers as to its cause.
Both our planes and flight safety system are following strict regulations, so we also want to know what caused the new plane model to crash, but I cannot make any speculation at that moment.
Last year was not the best for Asian aviation companies, with 3 major incidents. In March 2014, a Malaysia Airlines plane disappeared while flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing with 239 people on board. In June, a plane from the same company was shot down in eastern Ukraine, allegedly by pro-Russian rebels, killing 298 people. And last December, an AirAsia flight crashed into the sea while flying from Indonesia to Singapore, leaving 162 people dead. With the proliferation of social media today, public panic caused by these incidents is bigger than ever. But the heads of aviation companies still insist that their planes are safe, at least compared to other sources of transportation.
Wow. Joining me in studio is Avraham Kimchi, also known as Kim, an accident investigator for Israel's Aviation Authority. Thank you for being with me. You know, everybody yesterday in the world was looking at that footage, at that mind-boggling, and it looks like a movie, terrifying. When we look at something like that, I think it's important, and the thing that went through my head was, takeoff actually is one of the most dangerous points in a flight, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Why?
Because that's one of the places that you're starting from nothing and you're airborne. That area is an area that you're not airborne, you're not airborne, you're not airborne, you're not airborne, and then suddenly you're airborne.
Right.
This place is a very short area when you're very slow, very low. And then you add speed, and everything is okay. On landing, it's the other way around. You fly, and then you touch the ground. So mainly the thing will happen, if it will happen roughly at the end of a takeoff. However, in this story, it's a little bit different.
Why?
What we see, a little bit of history. This airplane has an engine change just a short time before, a left engine in Macau. So we're starting to suspect a left engine. What we see in the picture, and mainly because everybody walks with a camera,
right?
And the future will be even more than that because everybody will see and take pictures of everything.
Of everything constantly.
What we see here is actually the end of the story. The airplane actually, I assume, no,
of course, we're speaking to an investigator. This is an assumption
exactly,
and theory.
and Taiwan usually are good at that.
Right.
It's not like Malaysia and Indonesia, which are a little bit different. That's an understatement, a very understatement. Anyhow,
but when you look at this,
when I look at it, this is what you see at the end of the story. That means somewhere around he went quite high and very slow, didn't do or couldn't do or whatever he should do when you lose an engine. And
because the assumption is that as we're saying, is that one engine was lost, one engine was faulty, and what should one do? What should he have done?
He actually announced Mayday, 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 which means I'm in trouble, and I want to come back or whatever, and losing an engine. He said, I lost an engine. And from then on, we don't see the beginning. We'll find it on the instruments, of course,
the black
boxes, which are never black. And but what we see at the end of the story, that means he went slower and slower, lost lift, and actually entered the stall, what we call entered a spin, and that's what you see. Whether he wanted to pass above the building or not, I don't know. We'll find it eventually. I don't know if the pilots are alive or not.
That information has not been given to us as of yet.
Because he hit with the nose, so maybe they were the first to die. Anyhow, what we see is the entry of a spin, because it was not somebody that tried to turn or something.
Right.
And that's why he hit whatever he hit, and he went into the water.
And really quickly, what should one do at a point like that? You said there's nothing.
You need another 10,000 feet to go out of that, and somehow Earth is there.
So when you look at that footage, I mean, is it safe to say, and we're speaking again, I'm saying on theory, when we look at this horrific footage of the plane, was he at the point of no return? There was nothing he could have done?
Nothing. It's already way beyond any ability of pilots to do anything. Way beyond. He was already all the way back to the ground.
And
very slow, but it was way below stall speed of the airplane.
Right. And when we're looking at that, and we're looking at the crashes over the course of the last year of 2014, I'm almost about to say that it was a terrible year for aviation.
It was the best
and it
year
was the
in
best
history.
Year, wasn't it?
Best year in history. Don't forget how many airplanes, how many people are flying. You know, about 38,000 people are dying a year in car accident in America, and 2014, what I think, 1,400 and something in aviation.
But all these accidents obviously are not stopping him, nor should they, but it's just looking at that, it has not stopped anybody.
It's more than just to take a taxi to Ben Gurion and fly to New York.
Clearly. But again, as we said, as you mentioned, investigation here seems to be moving fast, and we will know information much faster. Kim, I want to thank you for coming, and hopefully on better circumstances next time. Thank you for being with us. When we get back, we examine the latest developments in the case of the murdered Argentinian prosecutor Alberto Nisman and what it's stirring in Argentina. Stay with us. First, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back, Morning Edition. I-24 News, the place you should be on this February. Thank you very much. My son is 8 months old today.
Wow.
Yeah, complete personal moment here.
Let's
say hello to Tony Gran, the man who brings me the news you missed while scanning the headlines while wearing fabulous ties.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yes, it was on sale somewhere. Maybe it was in New York, where the New York Times has dropped this very interesting story about some 9/11 lore, I guess is for lack of a better word.
Right.
According to the story, pre-9/11 ties haunt the Saudis as new accusations surface. Now, there's a lovely picture there of the Bushes with some of the Saudis back in the day. This week there was a disclosure of a prison deposition of Zacarias Moussaoui.
Right.
And in that he claimed that more than a dozen prominent Saudi figures were donors to al-Qaeda at one point, and that at one point even a Saudi diplomat in Washington discussed with him, Moussaoui, a plot to shoot down Air Force One. This is pretty strong stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty strong.
And this actually...
I almost said, didn't we know? Okay, no, we didn't know
We know that Saudi Arabia had ties to jihadist groups in the 80s and 90s for different reasons, fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan.
Bin Laden, grew up there, and basically, one of his main peas was the fact that the U.S. troops were on the ground in Saudi post Gulf War I. But yes, okay.
Yeah.
So that's front page, that's New York Times.
Yeah, okay. So that's something. And of course, Zacarias Moussaoui some are claiming is mentally ill and all the rest of it. But then again, he's...
That said, I still don't think...
An inside track on that
information, I still don't think that's going to destabilize relations between Saudi Arabia and the U.S.
Just another thorn in fodder for conspiracy theorists who we know there's a lot of those with 9/11. But
yes, but there we have it.
There we have it. Of course, moving up, same region, Gulf News, different newspaper. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but as far as the galvanization of Arab anger in the wake of the ISIS horrific killing of Muath al-Qasaspia, and I'm probably mispronouncing it.
Right.
There you go. His brother has said that we're all Jordan soldiers now, and the Gulf newspaper from the Gulf region has interviewed him to get his thoughts
and
on
as
this.
we took a closer look at this because this may be, I'm theorizing this may be a watershed moment for the battle against ISIS. Abdallah has already promised to do, to flex a muscle. It remains to be seen what that means.
It does, and again, a complicated juggernaut. We have the Times of London reporting actually on a New York Times story saying that there's cracks in the alliance after the brutal ISIS killing, and the United Arab Emirates apparently has pulled out of the coalition. So again, and then we have... The
coalition of the unwilling, as many are referring to it. Yeah. Okay.
Isn't it, though? In some ways. Al Arabiya talks about the response from Al-Azhar, which is Sunni Islam's most prestigious center of learning, based in Cairo, I believe, calling for the killing and crucifixion of ISIS terrorists. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth.
Aren't we in the Middle East?
Yes. And let's just say the conversation is being held across the Arab world about how to react to this outrage.
And then sadly, I have to say, as you're mentioning all this thing, I don't want to say they're winning, but that's exactly the type of reaction that ISIS wanted to see after that video was released, after this brutal, horrific new way of them killing people. But
very likely. Moving along just to a little nicer kind of story, the Wall Street Journal talks about the whole Greek drama that's been unfolding since the elections last month. Greek signals of compromise send markets soaring. And they have a picture there of Yanis Varoufakis, who was the current Greek Minister of Finance, who has dabbled in Marxism in the past, and he's called the whole bailout program, he calls it fiscal waterboarding. So he's got a little bit of diplomatic stuff to sort of peel away before he sits with the Germans. Yeah.
I feel that way at the end of every month.
He's a lively one.
Yeah, he's lively.
Okay.
Yes.
He's compared the euro to the Hotel California.
Nice.
You can check out any time you want, but you can never leave.
Okay.
So but markets are still soaring. So.
Amen. Right. Fiscal waterboarding.
Fiscal waterboarding. La Stampa, Italian paper, is saying that Italy is actually planning to close its embassy in Libya. And this is actually a fast-moving story because apparently something like 11 people have been killed, I believe yesterday, at an oil field partly owned by Total, the French company, somewhere in Libya. This was following on the heels
of the hotel of last week.
Killing five
foreigners.
Rapidly fracturing country. You could say it's already fractured.
And I'm glad you brought this to attention. At the end of the day, when we look at the outcome, the outbursts of, nobody can call it an Arab Spring anymore, but that's a country, Libya, that NATO and Western forces did intervene. It no longer exists as it was.
It seemed to be a good solution at the time, whatever NATO did.
And now now it appears to be that, yes, you walk in expecting oranges and you get apples.
Yeah. And if Italy pulls its... Italy, of course, is a very long relationship with Libya. So if their embassy goes, that's going to sort of send a signal that the country is really going down the tubes.
Yes.
A little friction in China. South China Morning Post says that Taiwan has basically told China's Communist Party to stop exaggerating its forces' role in the Second World War. So now, for little Taiwan to go after big China, it's kind of, it's something. They haven't had the best of relations since they were born as modern nations. But, we have to say that China is kind of preparing different ceremonial activities to sort of celebrate the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. Yeah. And Taiwan says, sort of keep it real.
Yeah. I was about to say, move on, people.
Move on.
Yeah. One more, last one.
Remember To Kill a Mockingbird, the 1960 novel, which everyone in American high schools required reading.
Yeah.
And the only book that Harper Lee ever wrote. Got a second one coming out.
I know.
Yes. It's going to be called Go Set a Watchman, and it's going to be coming out in July.
For the sake of full disclosure, I posted this on Facebook.
Yes, okay, I think I can't wait to read this. I mean, actually, she wrote it apparently before.
In the 50s. Yeah. I know. I mean, I love this moment because it's a great literary moment, and it does give one hope that, 70 years can pass, but you can still write a book.
Yeah, she's 88, and,
wow.
I think it's amazing stuff.
No, it's amazing stuff. And on that happy note, we're going to lock you in the studio because you always stay with me, and we're going to move along.
Great.
Thank you, Tony. on to the latest in the mysterious death of Argentinian prosecutor Alberto Nisman. Local officials revealed yesterday that Nisman had drafted an arrest warrant for President Cristina Kirchner. Now, the 26-page document, which was found in the garbage at Nisman's apartment, also sought the arrest of Hector Timerman, Argentina's foreign minister. Nisman, 51 years old, was found dead in his apartment on January 17th, the eve of his planned appearance before Argentinian lawmakers, when he was expected to accuse Kirchner of mounting a cover-up over the 1994 bombing of a Jewish center which left 85 people dead and 300 wounded. Now, in a criminal probe released 4 days before his death, Nisman alleged Kirchner, other officials as well, had struck a deal with Iran aimed at shielding Tehran officials linked to the 1994 bombing in exchange for lucrative trade agreements. We are joined in studio by Noga help me pronounce your last name.
Ternopolsky.
Noga Ternopolsky, a journalist who has been covering Argentina and the embassy bombing case, in particular, for the past 20 years. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's first take a look at the following report and break it down from there.
The mystery surrounding the death of Argentinian prosecutor Alberto Nisman continues to grip the country. As it turns out, he had drafted a request for the arrest of President Cristina Fernández Kirchner. The lead investigator in the case, Viviana Fein, had earlier denied the existence of the document containing the arrest request, joining the theatrical move by Argentinian cabinet chief Jorge Capitanich, who ripped up the Clara newspaper for allegedly publishing false information. Now Fein has embarrassedly admitted the arrest warrant was indeed discovered, but said it does not affect the course of inquiry.
They don't modify the investigation. They don't change the investigation's direction. They don't have the importance to change the course of investigation.
The document found in Nisman's trash can allegedly accused the president of trying to shield Iranian officials from responsibility for the 1994 bombing of a Jewish center which left 85 people dead. The 26-page draft request was not included in his final submission to the judiciary delivered days before his death. Instead, Nisman called for Kirchner to face questions in court in a case he had been building up for almost a decade. Kirchner has called Nisman's claim absurd as she moves to dissolve Argentina's intelligence agency. Oscar Perilli, who was named Secretary of the Central Intelligence Service in December, said the bill's purpose was to create greater control over intelligence agents and to prevent extortion.
Why are we doing this? Precisely because we want to prevent the activities of intelligence service agents that do things on their own accord, that carry out activities with the purpose of extortion and with objectives that can be clearly stated.
Opposition members boycotted the session to show their disapproval of the president's move, additional criticism over the way in which she has handled the Nisman scandal. Meanwhile, according to polls, some 70% of the population believe they will never know the truth behind Nisman's death, as the new revelation seems certain to deepen the cynicism of Argentinians towards their rulers and institutions of power.
And joined in studio by Noga Ternopolsky, a lawyer, a journalist, right? You're a lawyer? No, I just made you a lawyer.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
thank you.
Independent journalist. Yeah, you just told me that I was professional. There you have it. But Noga, you've been covering the story. You've also, you're from Argentina, and you're originally from Argentina. I think everybody's obsessed with it, the Israeli, the Iranian angle, but it's not just that, right? I mean, this is a story that may bring down an Argentinian leader. Can this bring down Kirchner?
Well, it's hard to bring down Kirchner because she's at the end of her term to begin with. She's leaving office in October. She can't run again. So, she's over. And
what I'm asking about the regime right now, the implications and in Argentina of this case on the country. I mean, let's start by saying that this is a story that is so intensely insane. I mean, the details.
Couldn't make it up, right?
You can't make this up. It's like a movie.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Nisman, and first of all, let's break down what was found in his apartment now. Could he even have drafted such a warrant?
Yeah, the most important thing is that we still don't know. The autopsy has yet to be released. The full forensic report has yet to be released. And any sort of police report on what was found in his apartment has yet to be released. So all we really know for now is that he's a left-handed guy. He was found shot behind his right ear with a bullet angled down. He had no gunpowder on his hands. The entire place was swiped clean of anybody else's DNA. And we know a very, very damning thing, which is that the woman investigating his so-called unnatural death lied to the entire world. She came out and said no documents were found, zero, nothing, blip. And
bang. Yeah.
And a few hours later was forced to, do a kind of walk of shame, I'd have to say, and come out before the media and, acknowledge that that was not true. And not only was it not true, but the document that had been found, had just come out in a local paper in Argentina, was a draft of an arrest warrant for the president.
Now, I'm looking at, the situation in Argentina in regards to this case. There's a journalist that fled the country. Mm-hmm. That supposedly, had information. He's hiding somewhere in Israel, so it seems. How strong is her, what is this regime of Kirchner? Explain to us, little people around the world, what does this mean, and how close was Nisman to actually bringing her down or exposing this alleged, this alleged involvement with Iran when it comes to the bombing in 1994?
I think the question of exposure is clear, and I think in part what we're seeing is the kind of death throes of a regime that's desperate, that's lost control of its own narrative, right, and that was presented with an accusation it wasn't prepared for, and it had no way to really respond to. I think that's one thing. The other thing, you keep circling back to the question of, basically the institutions of state. Yes. What's going on there? And I think we're seeing the institutions of state's fragility exposed, and we're seeing basically the structure of a real state falling apart. Since Nisman was found dead, the government has basically come out and said, we have no ties to the intelligence operation of this country. They're having a civil war and we have no contact with them. We don't trust the judiciary. We're attacking the media. One of the cabinet ministers tore up a newspaper in front of TV cameras. So we're seeing a kind of collapse of the institutions.
Breakdown. And not only that, you mentioned, it's a tidbit, but apparently Mia Farrow tweeted something about this story last night. And somebody in Kirchner's cabinet, or, it's the secretary of, who is it that
the cabinet secretary, Aníbal Fernández.
Aníbal Fernández is tweeting back against Mia Farrow because she was taking a look at the Nisman case.
Now, it's important to note, for example, no one in this government, not Kirchner, not Fernandez, not anyone else, has, for example, uttered a word of condolence to the Nisman family. No one seems to be taking charge of the investigation. There was a really awful chaos until last night about would any other prosecutor accept to take on Nisman's case, which is the fundamental case here of the accusations regarding Iran and Argentina, right, the secret deal. And instead, we have the cabinet secretary who has spent the last hour and a half or so tweeting anti-Mia Farrow tweets, basically, kind of taking umbrage at the fact that she dared critique his president.
When it comes, sadly, we have like 2 seconds left. What does it mean for the case itself? Will this continue?
I hope so, but people who I trust and respect are expressing their real skepticism now.
Yeah, although, it is the incident itself has a damning effect. The question is, will anything be done? Noga Tarnopolsky, please come back. This is the most that we've understood in this really bizarre and horrible case. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
When we get back, something different, slightly lighter, or maybe off-sided. We sit down with America's Dr. Cannabis, yes, to discuss the medical properties of marijuana. Tony's waiting for that one. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Thursday, February 5th. Thank you. 2015, this is still the morning edition, the place you should be. Last I checked, I am still Yael Levi, and thank you for staying with us. And you should have. Why? Because the next item is one that I personally love. Israel has become a world leader in science on the medical uses of marijuana. So far, the government has allowed them to export only their knowledge, not the actual product. Israeli producers are holding a Jaffa Investors Conference today called Cannatech Israel. Am I pronouncing that right?
Cannatech.
Cannatech Israel, okay. It will feature Colorado Dr. Ellen Shackelford, good morning to you, whose patient Charlotte Figi, experienced a dramatic decrease in her severe epileptic seizures after being treated with a medical cannabis dubbed Charlotte's Web. That was triggering a wave of American interest in the medical potential of marijuana. Now, to further hear about this, we are honored to be joined in studio, as you just saw, by Dr. Alan Shackelford. Thank you for being here.
It's
also known as Dr. Cannabis.
In some circles.
In some circles. In some circles. Can I join that circle? But and you're a chief science officer. Let me give you your full honor. For One World Cannabis. And thank you for being with us. And also by the CEO and co-founder of Flux, Karine Klosterman. Karine, good morning to you. And explain to me quickly what Flux is.
Yeah, we're developing a tool to help people grow food in cities, and it has great applications in growing medical cannabis as well. And I'm actually the organizer of the event.
And before we break this down, I want us to take a look at the following report that deals with the legalization of the use of cannabis, not just for recreational purposes, in some places around the world, not yet in the Middle East, definitely not yet in Israel. Let's take a look at that report and then discuss the matter.
So in your eyes, this would get people high?
This would be a legalization of liquid marijuana in Georgia.
In the first day of hearings on Georgia's new medical marijuana bill, prosecutors and other members of law enforcement testified they're not supporting this year's measure. It grants patients immunity from prosecution here in Georgia if they obtain cannabis oil legally in another state and bring it home. Last year's bill, named after 5-year-old Haley Cox, had much lower levels of THC, the part of the marijuana plant that gets you high. This year's bill allows THC levels up to 3% for kids, up to 5% for adults.
It would be 100 times stronger than the oil we were talking about last year.
I would completely disagree with that.
The bill's sponsor, State Representative Alan Peake, who is the champion of the medical marijuana movement here in Georgia, says it's time to bring the more than 17 medical refugees in Colorado home, and that it's not right to limit the cannabis oil to just kids with seizures if other patients could benefit, including those who suffer from cancer, MS, Parkinson's, and autism.
We will be decriminalizing cannabis oil, less than 5% THC, only for qualified medical conditions. But again, anybody that wants to get high off of this stuff is going to be sorely disappointed.
Dr. Shackelford, I want to start with you because the Charlotte Web story, and I think is intriguing our viewers and everybody else. First of all, tell me what happened with this patient. What did you do?
I was approached by Charlotte's mother in February of 2012, so just about 3 years ago.
Right.
Because Charlotte was diagnosed with a condition called Dravet syndrome. It is a genetic mutation which causes intractable seizures. That is, seizures that don't respond to anything. Treatments whatsoever. She failed something like 15 different prescription medicines, a ketogenic diet, and ultimately was taken off all the medicines in part because they didn't work, but also because of the severe side effects. So in Colorado, cannabis is legal for the treatment of seizures, and she was desperate. Her doctors had said there's nothing more we can offer, and she was reaching out to anyone to try to find a treatment for Charlotte. And it was the first time, really, that anyone had suggested using cannabis in Colorado, anyway, to my knowledge, for a child. And I Charlotte was 5. And I was reluctant initially because this was completely new territory for me and, of course, for the state. But I realized soon after beginning to review her medical records, and then most compellingly after actually meeting Charlotte and her mother and seeing that she had had a seizure in the car, 2 seizures in the waiting room, and 2 seizures while I was evaluating her in the space of about 2 hours. And there were no options, no treatment options for Charlotte whatsoever. And I was convinced that if we did not intervene, she would die. So I began to read the medical literature on the use of cannabis to treat seizures and was astonished to find that a study had been done in the late 1970s, published in 1980, a collaborative effort with Professor Raphael Meshulam from Hebrew University, which showed that CBD in particular was extremely effective in treating intractable seizures. So knowing that there might well be some backlash from regulatory agencies and individuals, particularly in the health department, I felt that I had an obligation to see to it that Charlotte could be treated with this non-psychoactive form of cannabis. And we found, in fact, that it was highly effective. After her first dose...
Bottom line for us listening here, how many seizures post-using,
Well, she went from 300 seizures a week to no seizures in the first week of treatment. And she began to have seizures again, and we adjusted the doses.
Right.
But after just a few weeks of treatment, she had gone from 300 a week to 1 a week, and then to 1 a month, and now to 1 every other month.
Or 1 every other month. I don't know how you can even argue with medical data as such.
Well, people find ways.
People, yeah, putting it mildly. Tony, there's hope for us yet. But that said, I mean, when I'm going to touch on the conference in a second. That said, as you just mentioned, people find ways. This is a very hotly debated issue all around the world. But Kim, I want to also speak. Sorry, Karen. I want to also touch with you, because you're sitting here with a plant.
Right.
And I want to mention first, this is not cannabis.
This is not cannabis.
This is not cannabis.
Is legal.
Exactly. This is legal. This may be a salad in about an hour. We're not sure. But first, let's explain to the audience why we have a plant.
Okay.
What is this?
So this is a radicchio. This is a plant which is grown on water, which some believe is in fact the most sustainable way to grow food, especially in cities. Okay, where we have no space.
How does that connect? I'm leading you along to what we all want to hear about, which is cannabis.
How can what people are doing, growing food on water, lead to cannabis? Because in fact, in countries like Canada, that is the leading method of growing cannabis. Because growing cannabis on water, you can do it in large quantities. You can do it with replicable results, the same quality, more or less, every time. So it's really highly desirable to do so in water. Okay. So my technology can help people grow the same kind of cannabis every single time. Also, of course, grow tomatoes or lettuce and whatever. We take information from the crowd, all of the wisdom that the cannabis growers are already putting out there now in forms, and we put it into action through our tool. Okay, so essentially, we're taking the wisdom of the cannabis growers. Once again, I'm going to
mention to everybody, this is not a bong.
This is not a bong. You can't smoke it. This sits in the water reservoir of a hydroponics unit. Okay, it gives information to your computer, to your iPhone, and it will automate what's going into the water chemistry of your hydroponics unit, which is very complicated normally. Okay, how to grow in water is not something simple, but once you get the water chemistry down pat, you can get excellent results like this. This is radicchio. You can't even buy this in an Israeli market. Okay, so we have people growing food in cities now, or cannabis. Okay,
or cannabis. No, cannabis obviously
not in Israel. Okay, in Israel it's illegal to grow without a license. So I'm not talking about the Israeli market. We're talking about the Canadian market and the American market, where it is legal to grow medicinal cannabis. We're taking that information from the crowd, we're putting it into a computer, and we're letting people access it. So if they want to grow a strain of Charlotte's Web, okay, for their children, I'm not advocating that you self-medicate your child, okay? But people will get the know-how through this device on how to do it.
And because Dr. Shackelford, when I'm listening to this, and obviously I'm sure that there are people listening to us right now thinking, oh my God, what is this woman's number? I'm a drug dealer. I'd love to find you.
Right.
Yeah, I'm wondering how many drug dealers approach you.
I don't deal with drug dealers. I deal with people who are licensed.
I know. And I think the medicinal values. I'll take the stand. I think the medicinal values, be it for cancer patients, be it for Charlotte's Web story is amazing. That sounds like Lorenzo's oil in many ways.
In many ways,
it's like that. But when it comes to to this technique and Dr. Shackelford, I want to ask you. Did the medical community understand how important it was? Because the story of Charlotte clearly can affect thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of patients. Was there an understanding, or have people put a barrier up against it?
This is a very important question. And there was a great deal of pushback on the part of the then director of the Colorado Department of Health, which oversees the medical cannabis program, because this had never been done before. And the primary argument against using cannabis, particularly for children, but also for adults, is that we do not yet have a really good scientific grasp of
long-term effects.
Well, yes, and also dosing and a number of other parameters, and yet even without that in-depth knowledge, which I absolutely agree with, we have to find that, and that's why we're doing research in Israel to determine exactly how it works, what doses are most effective, and if there are long-term side effects.
If there are long-term side effects, has anybody done that research about Ritalin, which nobody seems to care that is being given in mass doses to young people around the world?
That's a very important question as well, because prescription drugs do have many side effects, including unexpected death in a number of instances. So, but I agree with my colleagues who are generally conservative that we need to understand this better. But that does not mean that we should not use it in those situations where it can be life-saving.
Life-saving, as was the case.
Enhance people's quality of life by decreasing pain and allowing people to become not only more functional, but to lead really lives that are fulfilling.
Lives that are meaningful.
That's what was done 100 years ago. Cannabis was an extremely important therapeutic intervention and part of as many as a third of all prescriptions written in the United States and in Western medicine up to 1940.
I could listen to this for, completely sober. I could listen to this for hours. But no, very, very true points. As we said, the convention's going on now tomorrow in Jaffa. Thank you for being with us. You locked
Tonight
in Jaffa, and we will plug it again. Tony Grant, who is here with the last 4 minutes, sadly, because I was completely...
Okay, well, let me go really quick.
Web review, the spiral viral that is the web review, because I just couldn't stop listening to this. Go ahead.
All right, well, on a sort of regional and important note, a lot of social media attention has been focused on Jordan, because apparently Facebook and Twitter have been alight with messages of, let's just say, support for Jordan's fight against ISIS. I checked out a story on one of our favorite sites, Vocative, and talks about how, prior to this horrific execution of the pilot, a lot of people were blaming Jordan for dragging it into this struggle, and now they're, it's a complete flip-flop in many respects. And of course, speaking of complete flip-flops, Bruce Jenner. Okay, Esther.
Yes.
Bruce.
No.
Yes, Bruce.
He's going for Esther.
No, his mother.
Oh,
his name's Esther. Has confirmed basically that the former Olympic champion is now a she, in many respects. And he's well on his way to becoming officially.
We are no longer wondering.
And we support, she supports this. She's very proud of him. She didn't realize the struggles he had as a man. I don't think America realized. 1976, he wins the decathlon in Montreal.
Yes.
Wheaties.
Yeah.
But I think it was mingling with all those Kardashians.
I was about to say, all he wanted was a dress. I'm loving that this is finally out in the open.
It's
and more power to him.
Great stuff.
Just don't call himself Esther. Yes. So there's that.
Speaking of blast from the past, Poltergeist, the movie. Remember 1982 made the suburbs really freaky.
Which one?
Poltergeist.
Of course.
Spielberg. Another one's coming out in 2015.
I was really afraid when my daughter was born. She looked exactly like the kid. Yes,
we all did. But there's one coming out in 2015, so the trailer is leaked and people are talking about Poltergeist. But what's creepier than Poltergeist? The state of Florida.
Yes.
Okay. A Florida man.
We do serious news here. I'm serious. Yeah. Okay.
Was serving alligators for the Super Bowl snacks. Yes. And, most people go for nachos, buffalo wings. Yeah, he was clipping alligator tails, and he was, serving them.
Do people actually eat alligators? What can you do with
them? Well, he was. I don't know.
Alligators flambe, stir-fry alligator. Yeah.
But, when you think
Curry alligator.
Do I have 20 more seconds?
Yes.
When I think of things slithery and reptilian, what comes to mind? Camilla Parker Bowls. So the Telegraph reports that it's true that a new book has dropped and Prince Charles almost called off his wedding to Diana. Gee, I wonder why.
Oh, yeah.
Not because she was so beautiful and lovely, but because there was the pre-interloper, Camilla.
Yes.
That gave both of them, Diana and Charles, pause. But we know that, they had two beautiful children and, of course, a beautiful life for Diana while she was with us. But again, the scandal just doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't. It has been going,
With all due respect to the current Duchess of Cornwall.
We actually have a little bit more time. Yeah. I'm not a spring chicken, but will the world ever let go of this story?
No.
Okay.
And I think it's because of Diana's glamour and
also it had all the makings of a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, yes. Paris Hilton's brother Conrad had an in-flight tantrum on a flight to London in July. He was scaring children. He was handcuffed to his chair. He was calling passengers peasants, and now he's been busted by the authorities in L.A. because that's, I guess, where the flight maybe was heading to. So yeah, he was not doing nice things.
Rich kids, spare us. No, really.
This is Paris Hilton's little kid brother. And, it's kind of had like a Marie Antoinette moment at 30,000 feet. We're not really sure why. There's different theories going on. Guess who his lawyer is?
Who?
Robert Shapiro. Yeah, that Robert Shapiro.
I think Dr. Shackelford is sitting here with a huge grin on his face.
People coming back to Poltergeist,
coming back to haunt us, definitely.
Shapiro.
Sadly, that was all the time we had.
Okay.
Thank you, Tony, as for
measure.
every day. When we get back, we will tell you everything there is to know about the Berlinale 2015 Berlin Film Festival opens today. First, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning. I-24 News, Thursday, February 5th, 2015. Avri Rosentzvi, do you know what today is?
No.
My son is 8 months old.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I'm sticking in it.
You're not in weeks? You're not counting in weeks?
No. It's the second one. We don't care.
35 weeks and a half.
No, as I said, and we're letting him grow on his own. That said, Avri Rosentzvi, you shouldn't care because you're the culture editor. I-24 News.
Doesn't mean I don't care.
Okay, exactly. What time is your show every day?
What time is my show? 4:10.
4:10, exactly. And that's why we should watch, because you're bringing us amazing news such as, kick it.
The Berlinale, the Berlin Film Festival, opening today.
I'm going to stop you for a second. I forgot Michael Friedman.
Hi, how are you?
We did not forget you,
Michael Friedman.
Per se.
Yeah, okay. Hold on. We did not forget Michael Friedman. Exactly. Yeah. Michael Friedman's here with sports. He will be talking about sports in a minute, but first we'll concentrate on Avri, the beautiful Avri. Go ahead.
You know, festivals are a kind of sport.
They
are.
Know, yeah. They are. People, it's
people running around. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Berlinale. Shoot.
So yeah, we have a very interesting festival this year. First of all, it's really cold in Berlin right now.
It's isn't it?
Super cold.
It's super, super duper cold.
Yeah, and I hope they brave the cold to see these movies, because this festival, unlike Cannes or Venice, is open to the public. Everyone can come and watch the movies. It's not the exclusive thing. Rub shoulders with the stars.
With the stars, the live.
And there are some stars, but actually the stars in this festival are the directors. We have really interesting directors this year. We have new films by Werner Herzog, Peter Greenaway, Terrence Malick.
Wow, Terrence Malick. Love Terrence Malick.
Yeah. He's been, after 20 years of not making film, he's been making them in the last few years.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, and yeah, so
yeah, we know how you feel, Avri. Yeah, okay. He's been making films.
He's been making films. All in all, we have over 200 films in this festival, 23 in competition. It's going to be a very interesting competition this year.
What should we look out for?
Well, let's start with the fluff, okay?
Please.
We have Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella, not a movie you'd expect to find in...
Stop for a second. Kenneth Branagh directed Cinderella?
He's directing a Disney live-action remake of Cinderella.
See, we just had a big item about cannabis. Who was high?
Everybody, maybe.
Okay.
They all went to Colorado and talked about it.
It sounds like this. That sounds like a bunch of producers sitting in the room going... Let's have Kenneth Branagh direct Cinderella.
Well,
yeah,
after he directed
idea.
Thor, maybe it's not, the world is topsy-turvy.
Okay, and we have a little clip, I think, of Cinderella.
Okay, let's watch.
Let's watch. Okay.
My fairy godmother.
Now, where's mice?
Glass.
And you find that really comfortable. Now off you go, for you shall go to the ball.
Can I say something? How mainstream is that?
And it's they're showing everything in the trailer. What surprises could they possibly have in store? No,
they're showing everything in the trailer. This is play-by-play Disney.
Yeah.
Just with humans.
Well, they've just announced last week that Emma Watson is going to be playing Belle in the live-action Beauty and the Beast remake.
Oh, rags! I know. I give up.
And it's in the Berlin Film Festival. Can you imagine those
exactly
German film critics? Scheisse.
No, but this is so mainstream. I think that, if you're doing Cinderella nowadays, and it's the modern age, you can either make a statement, do something different. It was a great Drew Barrymore film about Cinderella, or you can just not do it. Ever After, where it's like a feminist.
Annie. They did the Black
Black Cinderella.
Black Cinderella. Bingo. Do that.
Okay,
Amen.
but we do have better things.
Shoot.
Moving on, we said Terrence Malick. Terrence Malick is coming in with the Knight of Cups.
Yes, Knight of Cups.
He's really collaborating with interesting people here. We have Christian Bale, Natalie Portman, Kate Blanchett, Antonio Banderas. When have you last seen Antonio Banderas in an interesting movie?
For a while. Definitely for a while. Quite a while. Yeah, Michael concurs.
We don't exactly know what this movie is about.
Sorry. Yeah, we
don't
know
exactly know what this movie is about. It's kind of looks like a trippy, surreal thing a little bit.
Terrence Malick.
It's about a screenwriter.
Okay.
It takes place in Hollywood. We haven't seen him.
I think we have a clip of that too.
Take place. Oh, do we? It's a beautiful trailer.
Let's take a look.
Let's watch it.
You have love in you. I know it.
Blind. Suppose it isn't there for me. I was afraid when I was young. Afraid of life.
Oh. See, that's a movie I like. I mean, I don't know, but it looks like disturbed adults facing big dilemmas.
Yeah, at least there aren't any dinosaurs like in his last movie.
True. What was the last movie?
He made, I forget the name. It was the one with the family and the history going back. It was with Sean Penn as the father.
Oh, yeah, that was awful.
It was a hard one.
Yeah, that was Okay, moving on.
Yeah, okay. Well, the opening film of the festival is called Nobody Wants the Night.
Okay.
It's by Spanish director Isabel Coge.
Nice.
A woman. We have I
Finally?
think 3 women in competition.
Unbelievable.
3 women.
Thank you. You gave us 3. Yay.
I'm representing the white man I see in this instance.
Exactly. You're sitting in the chair. 3 women, woohoo. In 20 years, maybe we'll have another one. Yeah, we'll have 4.
It stars Juliette Binoche.
Nice.
Token woman.
Token
European woman.
Strong woman.
Yeah, she's an Arctic explorer, so that has to be an interesting movie.
An interesting movie. Okay.
Yeah, Nobody Wants the Night. Another female movie. I hate that. I hate that we have to gender
that we have to
movies.
Yeah. What does it mean, a female movie?
Yeah. But a female directed movie is by Polish director. I'm going to try this.
Try.
Małgorzata Szułomowska.
Okay, you just made her Chinese?
Yeah,
you know. Clearly you made her Chinese,
don't know.
but you tried.
With the film Body.
Yes.
It's about a coroner and his daughter. It's about a single father coroner. It's Polish. It's probably going to be super depressing. But it's interesting because the director of the festival said this year's lineup, and I quote, will be the usual mixture of anorexia, religious fanaticism, child abuse, and torture.
Kind of like life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
And they have a very interesting jury also this year, which we didn't mention. Darren Aronofsky is at the head of the jury.
Interesting. I can see him as somebody that the Berlin Film Festival will pick.
He likes twisted movies.
Yeah, he likes
his last movie was really bad. Talking about going mainstream, Noah, that was that was really bad.
Yeah.
But we also have Bong Joon-ho, director of The Host and Snowpiercer, Korean.
Okay.
We have Audrey Tautou to bring in the
female
French, the
female French,
and Matthew Weiner from Mad Men is also on the jury.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, he made a movie. Whose name I don't remember because it was a flop and it wasn't so interesting
and was it a movie made as of late, recently?
2014. He made a movie.
Okay, we're not going to touch on that one. Clearly a sore issue for him.
The other movies we really should mention is Werner Herzog with Queen of the Desert. It's an epic biofilm where Nicole Kidman plays Gertrude Bell, who's apparently an amazing real-life figure, which I did not know about.
Are you serious?
I didn't know about her.
You didn't know about Gertrude Bell?
No, but she came to the Middle East. She was an explorer.
Michael's now wishing I do not turn to him.
Gertrude Bell, go. Tell us everything about her.
I know this much about her.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
Okay.
But it also has a stellar cast. Naomi Watts, Naomi Watts was originally cast. I'm sorry. We have Damian Lewis, James Franco.
Wow.
And we have Robert Pattinson.
I know, that's the vampire.
As Lawrence of Arabia.
Really? No, I can see that. Blonde young man.
But having to go head to head with Peter O'Toole, he does not.
No, he's not
come out.
It doesn't come out.
He does not come out a winner.
I know. But that said, Avri, I mean, it was so fascinating. But because we are running out of time I'm not going to say what I was going to say. For Michael.
Yeah. Let's push culture for sports. Let's do that. No, I'm sorry. There's nothing against sports.
Nothing against sports.
No.
Nothing
We do
against
rule
sports.
the world.
Michael, try and top that one. Yeah, rule the world. Top that one.
This week, super exciting. I didn't sleep a lot. We had the Australian Open.
Yeah.
We had the Asian Cup Finals. And the biggest event of the year, for America at least,
right.
The Super Bowl.
Yes!
Not too happy with some of the results, but
I'm in it for the commercials.
the commercials
Yeah,
were
being
priceless.
but let's genderify the Super Bowl.
And Katy Perry.
And Katy Perry. Thank you, Avli.
We did have culture there.
We did have culture. It was very
a
cultural.
Giant,
a
giant tiger.
A giant Cheeto.
That's cultural.
Yeah.
And sharks.
And
Don't
sharks.
forget the
And sharks. But you have a report for us, right?
Yeah, all the top champions of this week.
Let's take a look.
With exciting finals this week around the world, who is your favorite winner? Serena Williams, Novak Djokovic, Team Australia, or the New England Patriots? Serena Williams took on Maria Sharapova in the 2015 Australian Open Finals in a stellar match. The American star extended her winning streak against the Russian to 16 in a row. The world number one has now surpassed her childhood heroes Chris Evert and Martina Navratilova, and is only 3 matches behind Steffi Graf, who holds 22 majors. After the win, Serena was jumping up and down in celebration, and Navratilova was there to hand the trophy to the champion.
Novak Djokovic.
And moving to the men's tennis champion, Novak Djokovic captured another Grand Slam title. Australia has proven to be a successful place for the Serbian. The world number one took on Andy Murray, and this gave him his 5th title in Oz. While the first 2 sets proved competitive, Djokovic would go on to win in 3 hours and 39 minutes and held the trophy high in the air. Still down under, the Asian Cup final was played in Sydney with the host country fans showing their colors. While the Koreans had not let in a goal in the entire tournament, Massimo Longo had a beautiful strike to put his side ahead. The Koreans were resilient with a late equalizer, but it wasn't enough as the Socceroos claimed their first Asian Cup title, winning 2-1 in extra time. Team Australia were crowned the new kings of Asian football. And moving across to the United States, the biggest event of the year took place when the New England Patriots defeated the Seattle Seahawks 28-24 in Super Bowl 49. This epic event came down to the wire, and the Patriots were able to survive to give Tom Brady and Bill Belichick a 4th NFL championship together. The newspapers were already printed reading "Champs Again," and all the players were celebrating this emotional victory. Of the 4 big winners this week, Serena Williams captured her 19th Grand Slam. Novak Djokovic took his 8th title. The Socceroos won the Asian Cup, and the New England Patriots won the Super Bowl. So pick your favorite champion of the week.
Michael Friedman on the spot here. Let's touch on the greatest moments, but we're going to start with the Super Bowl. Come on, can we start with the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl for me was by far the most exciting.
Wasn't it?
I stayed up till 5 in the morning, and it was an amazing, amazing game. I cried myself at the end because being in New Jersey, New York, I'm born to hate anything Boston-related,
yes.
Patriots.
Yes.
And they did it again.
Again and again. You know, I remember I remember their first win. I think that was what? 2001. 2001.
Brady Belichick.
The Patriots, exactly. And since then, they've gotten...
This is their 4th, the Brady Belichick era. But it was almost, for a minute there, at the end of the game, there was a chance where Seattle was going down the field. There was a ridiculous catch, and they're thinking to themselves, this is happening all over again with the Giants. And somehow they were able to have, at the end, Butler just jumped in there, made a heroic catch, and
there you have it.
And then you have the new Super Bowl champions.
So then we're going to have to explain to Avri, who's very much into the Super Bowl and anything related to football.
It's a ball, right?
It's a ball. That is a ball.
Spiral.
It's exactly
and,
like
and
you go like this.
Way.
Yeah, exactly.
Big brawny guys. Big
guys.
Yeah. In tights. Very important. In tights. But the Inflatagates saga behind was that the fact that nobody knew who tried to...
we still don't know who. And, after
well, somebody took the air out of the Patriots' balls?
Well, it was all of it.
I love saying this!
Yes. All of the balls had... 11 of the balls had less.
Had less air. Right.
And, when you lead up to the Super Bowl, there's not a lot of action going on.
Those are inflated balls, or are you just happy to see? We can do this forever.
Doesn't it hurt less when it hits them in the head?
If it's slightly,
it might. But Tom Brady, he's going to be able to throw the ball perfectly.
Irrespective of
very good with the ball in his hand. Either
yeah.
way, it's going to go to the receiver.
The point is, balls were in.
You love it when Tom Brady has the balls in his hand.
He really is a genius at it.
No, definitely, it is the genius of it. I can take this forever. Sadly, it's all the time we have, and we end on inflatable balls.
Yes.
But thank you for bringing inflatable balls, Michael. Avli, always such a pleasure to have you. This was amazing item. And of course, I-24 News Morning Edition. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, all those social networks. And of course, tune in tomorrow morning for your next edition, your daily edition of the Morning Edition I-24 News. Have a wonderful day.